day going to work. And I talked to the EMS, talked to the NYPD, because it's federal land, their hands are tied, they're limited to going in there. You have to wait for perhaps one of the very few park police officers that are out there. It's absurd, is what it is. And these laws are putting us all in jeopardy.
Well, particularly ICE. We had the director of the New York City ICE office here, and he was very frustrated because he gets no cooperation whatsoever. And that's a big thing, because ICE is in a very good position to handle these people, but yet they're not allowed to, because there's a law in place that says we can't cooperate with ICE.
Right, and I use the word absurd, but we often use the words very discouraging for a law enforcement officer that can't, operate under those conditions. Some of them appear to be at a loss. When I talk to them at these civic meetings and community council meetings, they give you that look where they ask you, what else do you want me to do, right? I arrested the person. And by the time I'm done with the paperwork, they're back at it, right? And what we fail to realize, just as the human element to this whole thing, is that if we don't apply proper punishment, they're emboldened. And this is why you see things getting worse and not better.
Tom, in District 23, what would you say is, for that District 23, what's the top three concerns of the residents?
Okay, so it's almost equal to what's happening statewide and nationally. It's public safety, and those three things we talked about: clean slate, qualified immunity. This morning, I went to a local pizzeria that we frequent during the campaign late at night, and while the owner was in the back preparing food, his children, who were off for Columbus Day, were in the front doing a little schoolwork, and as of right now, it's being deemed an emotionally disturbed person, EDP, and smashed the window in front of these kids under the age of 8 years old, screaming obscenities as if he was trying to get into the building. The owner tried to get out as fast as he could. Then the individual took off down the block, but he was so concerned with how rattled the children are, right? So this is going to cost the store owner, we were speaking with him this morning, over $1,000 in repairs that are not going to be, he's not going to be compensated for, and the children. So if anybody knows Broad Channel, they've got a beautiful little strip of about a dozen or so mom and pop shops. This is where people used to be able to send you up to the Luigi Ices or the Hooks Pizzeria, ride your bicycle up, or go to the little convenience store to get your mom or your dad, a quart of milk. They're not doing that anymore. They're worried what's happening on this little piece of strip. Yesterday I was on Beach 116th Street. Again, other than the Chase Bank, you have all individual stores, mom and pop stores. These folks have invested life savings for a job and a source of income. They put money into the storefronts to make it look nice, and are required to keep the streets clean, and they do so. And then they have to put up with emotionally disturbed people addicted to drugs, the criminal element. It makes it very hard to operate on these margins. Going back to the pizzeria, $1,000 worth of damage, right? And $22 a pie. It's a lot of pizza before you even open up.
Your opponent, can you tell us what she stands for? That is different from what you stand for.
Right. So simply put, she has voted for the no cash bail laws that are in place. She will tout the multiple amendments that just continue to fail. She would like to blame, somebody like myself who's not even elected, but my ideas would jeopardize all this. But again, as I mentioned, in New York State, the Democratic Party has what they call a supermajority in both the lower house and the upper house. They could change that law tomorrow. There is nothing stopping them, right? Even if every last single Republican voted against that, they'd still be able to do what they can do. So I don't buy I fought the governor on these bills. I fought, hard for my constituents. Then you either have no influence in your own party, or you have very little influence. A line she uses against me is that if I'm elected, it's a threat, and she says this in public. If Tom is elected, he will not have a seat at the table. They will not give him a seat at the table. So what I would like to submit to your listeners is that, 30 years in corporate America, I've been in the boardroom. I've submitted reports to boards of directors of Fortune 500 companies. I've met with the New York State Banking Authority, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Office, Financial Regulatory Authority, and everybody else who manages finances. In the military, I've operated at a command post, tactical operational centers, division level command centers running operations for the entire Afghanistan. When I was there in 2016, I was the lead logistical element that led logistical operations for all of Afghanistan. So whether it's the dinner table, the board table, or in a command post somewhere, I promise you I will have a seat at the table.
What is your opinion of Sullivan, of our illustrious mayor?
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. So as a young officer, somebody once told me a little saying that seems to be more true now than it was when I was a young lieutenant, and that was admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter allegations. And that doesn't work in the military, right? So regarding the mayor specifically, he has lost public trust and confidence. And in the military, or in my personal profession, you would be removed until your matters and you've been deemed innocent, because you're deemed to have lost the trust and confidence of your soldiers, your employees, your clients, and you're no longer a good representative of the military or this corporation. So we do things very differently than in politics. And he needs to get these affairs in order. And the leading indicator is that, right, for any leader in the military specifically, is you can't have that plausible deniability. If everybody under you is stealing and corruption, and I think it's up to 7 major departments now.
I think it's 9.
9. So, and to me, the most disturbing is in the sheriff's office, right? We legalized marijuana a couple of years ago, and it's a whole other conversation. But, when we did that, you had cartels, you had criminal organizations, transnational organizations, organized crime, the local street people just like, this is just an opportunity like they could never imagine before. And for the sheriff to be accused of, supposed to be going out and shutting down, is going out and stealing product, stealing cash, and let the operation continue so that they can come back again. So I would certainly say that the mayor has lost trust and confidence of the majority of New Yorkers. He is becoming less effective every day. And we need somebody in there who can focus on the real issues of New York City.
If you realize if he steps down, you get that lunatic Giovanni Williams in temporarily.
Right, so, that just tells you that's a sad state of affairs when we don't want to get rid of this person because the next option is even worse. What I would submit to people, and this is true leadership, right? You don't allow that person to continue on, and then when the next person comes in, you deal with that, right? That's leadership. That's facing tough decisions, tough problems, facing the city. But are we supposed to allow that to happen as an administration, as citizens, as law enforcement agencies? I would submit to you not.
Well, that's Adam's problem. All the people that he brought on are cronies of his, and they were never really vetted. And he has no managerial experience. He likes to behave like a swagger man, but he really has no leadership qualities. And coming from the police department after serving 40 years, I know what leadership is about. And you have to take the responsibility for your subordinates. If you pick them and they screwed up, the buck stops with you, not them.
Correct.
That's what you said. Basically, what you said before.
Yeah. So going back to a second lieutenant, I remember one of my first exams, the definition of leadership, right? It's the art of influencing people to do things that they would not normally do, or to do the right thing even when they're not being watched. So it is evident that they were not being watched. It is evident that they saw their leader getting away with certain things. So why shouldn't they? And then it becomes systematic corruption, which is what we're seeing. And it starts at the top, and then it eventually it will filter down to the rank and file.
What's your opinion on how the governor is handling this? She has the power to remove him,
right.
But there's a misconception about that. She just can't remove him; she has to serve him with charges. It has to give him the opportunity to explain, and then after that, she can remove him. But she's waffling on this. And I guess there's a political decision involved here. But she really...
If you can remove them, who's going to be
maybe that's the problem. You get Giovanni Williams. So I was wondering what your opinion on how the governor is handling this.
Right. I think she's doing a poor job at it. Again, going back to basic leadership skills, right? You have to be prepared for situations like this. You have to have somebody in mind to replace an individual. Again, I'm sorry, but 30 years in the military, I learned a few things. And one is, a leader is very important. And if they're bad, they can wreak havoc on the soldiers, on morale and welfare and effectiveness. But that's why you have a second in command, an executive officer. That's why you have a lieutenant governor. That's why you have a deputy mayor. And if there's nobody they can find, then shame on you for not being prepared. Because when I was in office, when I was again on the battlefield, I faced those tough situations where you have to remove a seasoned non-commissioned officer for simply losing the trust and confidence from the soldiers, right? Their lives are in jeopardy. Combat effectiveness is in jeopardy, right? You cannot sit by and take too much time. I know who I'm putting in that next spot. I knew who I was going to, and if I didn't, I knew who to call and say, I need a new senior non-commissioned officer. I need a new lieutenant who I want to send home. I send people home from Afghanistan, and it's not easy, right? These things can be very personable, but it is a matter of life and death. It is a matter of loss in trust and confidence in your organization. And if you, as a leader, don't do that, everybody around notices that you did not have the courage, you did not have the character to make a tough and difficult decision. She has had more than enough time to find a replacement and make the realization that he has lost the trust of the people.
Yeah, but she's stuck with Jemani Williams for 80 days.
The way it's structured, right, if she removes, if the governor removes the mayor, then the public advocate in this situation with Jemani Williams would step in automatically. I think it's 60 to 90 days, they would do a special election, anybody can run. Then after they finish the term, they'd be in general election, correct?
Right. See, that's the problem.
Right, so you just, that process exists for the very reason you just named. There was a reason that was created years ago. When you're a leader, right? I understand. People may not be for Jemani Williams. Maybe he's a lot worse, and that's what people fear. So let's address that. If he can't do the job either, then we move on to the next step.
It's a good point.
Why is that process there? It's exactly there for that
She
purpose.
could remove him too.
Right. Or look, this is America. That's the process we all agreed to, that they put in place. So he becomes the next person. Now he's got to run for office, and if he gets elected, he gets elected.
Well, the problem with him is during the 80 days that he has, he probably would introduce all kinds of legislation to the crazy city council. You know, things will be even worse.
Right. Elections have consequences,
Right.
and that's certainly one of those consequences.
I
But
think it's-
again, I would submit to you that the process is, and he rightfully holds that position, right? And I certainly don't agree with his policies, but hopefully the citizenry wake up and realize whether it's the anti-police, defund the police. Listen, I want to go back to my election for half a second. I've never seen my opponent work so hard in my life. She's been entitled to this position. Her mother held the position for 28 years. Now she's going on her 8th year, and somehow I don't have a right to run. And it's a tough race I'm in. I'm in a tough race. I took on a tough battle, tough opponent, but people have to have a choice. And I just, again, elections have consequences. And you may not like the individual because they're not of your party, but for the sake of the city, for the sake of the safety of the citizenry, pay attention to who you vote for. Now,
Well, if there's a special election, you could submit your name to be mayor. There's no party affiliation to it.
yeah, I'll take this one election at a
I'll get to
time.
that question in a moment.
And
But Tom, so you're against or for term limits?
I'm for term limits. So in corporate America, very rarely will you have a senior leadership in the same division for too long, right? Because you want new ideas, you need newer energy, and some people become entitled or make exemptions to themselves, certainly in the military. So when you become a company commander, you have a 2-year term. When you become a battalion commander, you have a 2-year term. When you become a brigade commander, you have a 2-year term. You see the pattern?
Right.
Because you start to say, you know what, I don't need to take the PT test. I don't need to go to the physical training test. I don't need to go to the range, right? Everybody else has to, or everybody gets to know me. And even good people can corrupt slightly, right? If somebody knows you're going to be there for 20 years, right, you're going to get the money, you're going to get the deals, and they're going to go ahead and support you 100% because you're going to want something in return. And this is one of the challenges I face as an incumbent. I'm the law enforcement family. I'm trying to make an appeal to the rank and file, and it's coming from a law enforcement family. It's very discouraging not to have the support of law enforcement agencies because I will support them no matter what, right? I'm elected. I hold no grudges. Not business. It's confusing. And maybe someday I can figure it out. I have ideas of why it's done, And maybe it's because they know that the Democratic Party has a stronghold on New York City, right? I think we hold 6 of the 61 seats in the city council, 48 of the 146 of the 150 seats in the assembly, and they just want to get rid of more Republicans. One of the most humorous things I hear when I go to like a civic meeting or a community council meeting is when you find somebody on the fringe that says, the Republicans, right? You guys, and I say, ma'am, sir, what Republicans are you exactly talking about? So we need a balance. We are out of balance in both the Assembly, the Senate, and they need to know that. When I win this race, it will, mark these words, it will send shockwaves that a Republican won a seat that hasn't been held by a Republican in 68 years. And listen, I appeal to Democrats. They voted for me last time. And, we on election night, just to remind your listeners, we were up my first time running against my opponent. And we were up 286 votes 54 days later on January 3rd. I got dragged through the court system for voter suppression, which is absurd. Early voting, mail-in voting, election day, and I got sued for trying to stop the elections, voter suppression. And then we lost ultimately by 15 votes.
How many?
15, 1-5. Right. So it went through the court system, and it was very discouraging to appear in court multiple times and, have a judge just kind of give you that look, you poor bastard. No matter what you say or do, it's not going to matter to you. So I've gotten to be a pretty good read of faces and eyes and
what you were talking about before in the military, that's the rotation system, right?
yeah.
In fact, there's the general staff. If you're a good boy, you go up to the general staff for a couple of years, and then you go back with a promotion. Isn't that the way it works?
Correct. So like, my whole career, and it probably hurt me later on, but I was always involved in operations. I was an executive officer and a commander. Then I became operations, an executive officer and a commander. And when I got to the division level, I became a deputy commander of the sustainment command. And it's a good thing, but unfortunate. I got picked up for early promotion, selected early, they call it, twice. So I lost a year in there to go do good staff work. But I did work on staff work for short periods of time. But you never want to go like the Pentagon, right? I've been asked to go to the Pentagon for several times, and I was like, please don't.
It's like going to police headquarters, the Puzzle Palace.
Right, the Puzzle Palace, the Emerald Palace.
Well, sometime when I was in the department, I had suggested that when I made captain, I had suggested that the department adopt in some form the military version of rotation. And people, like, let's say you had a precinct command for 2 years, and things went well. You go up to headquarters in the staff position, and then usually, if you did good, you go back with the promotion. I believe in that system. I think it's a good system.
Correct. It's a very good system.
And I would hope that if you get in somehow, you could talk about that for the agencies around the state.
There's books written on this, and one of them is actually called The Challenge of Command, and just an outstanding book, whether you're a precinct commander.
Company commander?
Huh?
Company commander?
Oh, yeah, company. Yeah, it was actually written for like that company level command, but it applies to.
Yeah, well, a company is equivalent to a precinct.
Right, yep. So, you know, for your listeners out there, the challenge of command, I highly encourage you to do a book promotion.
Well, I think
But-
that with the knowledge you have, you would be very good at this, at the state, because you have that background.
So, you know, we just ran an ad in the newspapers, so all your boxing fans would look and see the tail of the tape. Right? They have two boxers side by side, and they say reach, age, power punch, is it the jab, is it the right hook? So I did one of those parodies as an ad, and we did, like, right, civilian experience. So I have 30 years in corporate America. We did a military experience. I have 30 years with combat tours and received the Legion of Merit, the Soldier's Medal, 2 Bronze Stars, education. I have a bachelor's in science, an MBA, master's in business administration with a concentration in finance, and I have a master's level degree in military strategic studies from a very prestigious university called the United States Army War College. Now, right, so that's a contrast is Tom Sullivan. Does he have the qualifications? Does he have the educational background? Does he have the real world experience to lead us, right? So there's a stark contrast. And that's all I ask your listeners to do when you go to the ballot box. Experience matters. Character matters. And that's the tail of the tape, right? How do I measure up against my opponent? And just go out, educate yourselves on the values and the character of your opponents, Republican and Democrat, right? There's no law. I get this question sometimes. I'm a registered Democrat. Can I vote for a Republican? I'm a Republican. Can I vote for a Democrat? Right? So in a general election, you can vote for whomever you wish. And when I knock on doors, I say, sorry, sir, sorry, ma'am, for disturbing you. I'm Tom Sullivan, running for the State Assembly, and I hand them my literature and say, I appreciate your consideration.
Well, everything you just said makes you the perfect candidate. I would vote for you if I was in your district, but I'm not.
Tom, growing up, were you a Democrat, registered Democrat, or was you?
No, I was always a Republican. I supported Republican initiatives. I would say, you know, my parents never taught politics, but they taught me life lessons, and that I learned that those more aligned with the Republican right. Patriotism. We honored our veterans every Memorial Day, every Veterans Day. If we were on the beach, you got off the beach and you went up and you sat there in your bathing suit or put a T-shirt on and you watched the flag get raised and then lowered to half mast and then again at noon raised to full mast. And you ran food plates down to the veterans in need. I was surrounded by World War II veterans. Patrick McGalley in the Battle of the Bulge, Mr. Fulham, V-Day+2, Mr. Schroeder fought on the Sicilian Peninsula. These as a young kid, I just was taught that they're good people and deserve our respect. As I became a student and started studying history or being interested in the military service, I went to a boarding military high school. So at 14 years old, we were taught patriotism and leadership. And my father came home one day. I came home one day, and my father was sitting at the table. I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was from the selective service, right, that I would now be eligible for service. And I was excited, and I opened it up right away, and I filled it out, and I put it in the return address, and he was sitting there with it was kind of like laughing, but a proud laugh. And he's like, how could you at 18 years old be so excited about getting your notice to serve your country? And I think back, if he had asked me that question back then, I would have said it's you did that. Because that's what he did. My oldest brother went to the military academy at West Point, served 8 years in the Army, and then did 26 years in the Secret Service. I have another brother that went to the United States Military Academy at West Point, number 5, and he did 30 years of active duty service. And the both of us served in Iraq together, and not in the same organizations, but we were there at the same time, and our paths had crossed multiple times. And I can't imagine the sense of pride, the sense of worry that their children were in war zones. And I'm starting to learn a little bit myself here, because I had the honor, so proud, back in May, just a few months ago, to pin lieutenant bonus on my son, who is currently serving down in Alabama. He's training to be an Apache helicopter pilot. And, when I left the Army, there was, relatively peace in the Middle East as far as what had been happening for many years. There was not war in Europe, which there's war in Europe now. And I don't know if you saw the news this morning with the multiple explosions at the South Korean border. So there's still more to come out as to what was those explosions about. But in this moment of what I think of this gap of leadership in our government at the highest levels, is an opportunity for Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, right? So yeah, it's. I believe I have the education and the experience and the real world and the knowledge to certainly serve in our New York State Assembly. And I look forward to addressing the tough issues, right? And one of those tough issues is the 2,280-something New Yorkers that died of fentanyl last year. This is a very big, complex issue. And through my studies and through my experience, I know that we've gone from 2 cartels in Mexico to 5 cartels. It is a $1 trillion business, $1 trillion business. That money buys corruption. That money buys violence on a scale like you've never seen before. And if you think we have a problem at the southern border now, although the Mexican government is dealing with massive amounts of corruption, if it fails, it will be uncontainable.
Well, Tom, earlier in the interview,
Way above the assembly race.
the captain mentioned you would be a great candidate for mayor. So, someday if you were sworn in as mayor, what would be your first order of business?
If I was sworn in as mayor of New York
What
City?
would be your, yes, if you were sworn in tomorrow as mayor of New York City, what would be your first order of business?
Yeah, so to restore honor, integrity, and character to the office, respect for it, and that would be a hard-fought battle. Bring trust and confidence back in your government that you will serve your constituents, protect their safety, provide good education, make sure everybody has some access to basic health care, housing, homeless in itself, emotionally disturbed people like we spoke about before. These laws that have been passed and these policies, look, I'm not for mass incarceration. I'm not for scooping up every individual on the street and locking them up somewhere upstate. That's not the case. But we are doing them a great disservice when somebody cannot regulate their medication, or you leave them on the street to the exposure of the heat, or you leave them on the exposure to the cold. That is not compassion, okay? Taking them off the street, even if it's against their will, they might not understand what's right or wrong. I find it very hard to believe that somebody who smashed his arm through the window with young children of a pizzeria restaurant 48 hours ago is not in need of help. So we're going to do him a service by let him stay on the street, let them defecate and urinate, let them, go back to Beach 116th Street and have a store owner, right? You had asked me before some of the differences. I went to a civic meeting the other day, and my opponent just blew up big corporate America, Walgreens, right? It is a corporation, but these are real people that work there from the neighborhood. They provide a good service, a cheaper quality product than maybe just an individual pharmacy, right? This is where people go for flu shots, COVID shots, and all their medical care, right? But they demonize the place, right? Do you know what her idea was to Walgreens? I want to force them to put a panic alarm in. A panic alarm. Is that why we sent you to Albany? To force Walgreens to put a panic alarm in? So you put a red button there. Does that button ring at the precinct? Ding a ding a ding a ding a ding a. And the police respond. I thought that was 911, right? So you want to blame corporate America, who mom and pop work in there, students work in there, but they continue to get exposed to danger, and everything from stealing 14-year-olds from stealing $5 bags of potato chips. Oh, we don't want to arrest somebody for the $5. No, we created that environment. Your policies created that environment that tolerates that, and you put your employees at help. And now we have policies. These policies for employees, by the way, whether it's Target, Walgreens, existed for a long time to protect the employee. Please don't engage with the, for your safety. But if you have a good employee who did not want to see that happen, and they go out there and they say, put the bag of chips down, or put the couple of cases of beer down, that caused somebody to go into a rampage, throwing bottles of beer all over the place, hundreds of dollars worth of damage, and striking fear into all these people. We created that environment. Those policies created that environment. It's intolerable, should not be accepted, and needs to be addressed before it gets any worse.
It's called blaming the victim.
Well, yeah, victim blaming. Victim shaming.
Captain?
Well, I think this has been a great interview, and sincerely, we, Kevin and I, and everybody in our circle, hope that you win, and we will do our best to support you. I think you would make a great representative at the state level, and if not, you'd be a good man. Kevin and I will
Well, you guys really want me to
Kevin and I
run
will
for
be
mayor.
special assistants.
Exactly. So, obviously, Top Talk, we have Top Talk's endorsement, Tom Sullivan, for the 23rd District. Okay, so
thank
we
you.
have Top Talk's endorsement. So anyone out there, any of our listeners who live in and can vote in the 23rd District for the State Assembly, New York State Assembly, Tom Sullivan's our man. Tom, thank you again for being here. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for giving me a voice. And you asked me a question at the beginning of this session, why am I running? I want to make sure the people have a choice.
You have a good choice.
Tom, how could our listeners get in touch with you in regards to donating or even participating in being volunteer the last 3 weeks of this?
Yeah, the best way, at broad strokes for your audience is Sullivan for State Assembly.com. And, there is an opportunity to donate. We're asking for very small contributions. There is an opportunity to volunteer, and we monitor that frequently, hourly. And we could certainly use your help as we, in just a few, less than 2 weeks, we're going to start early voting on August 26th. But for now, it's knocking on doors, and if you're always welcome to join us. For
You said August 20.
October 26th, yeah. October 26th.
Well, thank you again, Tom
Yeah.
Sullivan, as our guest. Thank you, Captain. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Cop Talk. You can also follow us on X, which is @WABC Cop Talk. That's @WABC Cop Talk. Until next time, God bless you. God bless law enforcement throughout the world. And God bless America. Thank you.
And YouTube, you can follow us on YouTube.
All right, we're all set.
How long?
Right.
How long?